You're watching TVC Breakfast. Now, in the next couple of minutes, we'll be talking about population census. Now, when we mention population census, it means a lot to so many people. To a politician, it may mean something different to a normal human being. But the point there is population census is an activity that takes place periodically, maybe 10 years or maybe 20 years. But we know that in Nigeria, the National Population Commission has been conducting a lot of research regarding the population of Nigeria, and there has been updates here and there. But the practical population census, where there is a house-to-house activity, has not taken place in the last more than 10 to 15 years. I think 2006 was the last time that an outright population census activity from house to house was conducted. But the federal government is looking forward to a likely population census in the next year. So we'll look at that. In the build up to that, what should we look at and what should we not look at? Because there's sometimes people peddle a lot of fears and rumors of things that are not originally out there. So let's talk about this. I have with me in the studio Federal Commissioner, National Population Commission here for Lagos State, Barrister Abimbola Salu-Hundeyin. It's nice to have you join me this morning.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Good morning, TVC,
Good morning.
and all those watching us. Thank you for having us here.
Since the federal government talked about or approved that there could likely be a population census next year, a lot of people have started debating and so on. But what is most important is a perception that Nigerians have around population, where a lot of people feel that population census is a political tool. Now, make us understand, break it down to us. What is population census and how are we preparing for it?
Thank you very much. Let me first of all say this. The census, the National Population and Housing Census that we carry out in Nigeria, or census globally, is an economic activity.
Okay.
It is in no way a political activity.
Great.
Regrettably, in Nigeria, there's this great misconception that the more you are, the more you get from the federal government. So our politicians tend to politicize this activity, and that is why you know that once it's census time, there's a lot of census migration in places like Lagos State, especially in Lagos State, because people believe that, oh, I must be counted in my own state, which is extremely wrong. The census is an economic activity. The census is carried out to determine the exact demographic data of a nation, how we stand. It is a mirror that tells us where we are in terms of development. Because it's a demographic data, once it is accurate, it enables the government to build its decisions, to formulate decisions, build policies around the data that we get.
And make accurate plans.
That is it. But when we now politicize it, and then we begin to go back to our state, like in Lagos State, that we know it's, let me use the word, thunderous population. Lagos is thick, dense, and high in population. But people would now leave during the census and go to their own states, you know. What they have done, I've been saying it, I think that's a criminal offense.
Whoa.
Yes, census migration should be criminalized because, you see, we keep accusing our leaders, oh, nothing is working, nothing is working. I'll give you an example. This is TVC. If we carried out the population census of TVC today, and we say, oh, Mr. Governor, you have 1 million people in TVC premises. And he says, okay, that's when what we are carrying out now is a foundation to the census. When it's census time, we've told Mr. Governor, okay, when it's census time, they give you 5 days to stay at home or 7 days. We've done the enumeration area demarcation, though it is not census, because it is the foundation. Mr. Governor would look at it, and that's what you built the national frame on. He says, okay, this is a number that I have in TVC, so I'm going to give them so number of TV sets, these and that. But during census, out of your 1 million population, 500 decides to go to other stations and all that.
Their place of origin, so to say.
To say. Then they come back after the census. And when we now count and we say, Mr. Governor, we found only 1 million, right, that I've said. But they have gone And then when they come back, it's now 10 million. How do you manage 10 million in a placement for 1 million people? Then they begin to complain, there's traffic in Lagos. Lagos has too much problem. Why would there be traffic? Because we have told Mr. Governor, when we carried out the census, we found that because during census, we ask plethora of questions. How old you are, what you do, whether you have a car, what school you go to, do your children go to school, are you a graduate, do you have work, do you have the hospitals near you, do you have this, do you have that? And we have already told Mr. Governor that in TVC, there are 1 million people, and they all have their cars, they have this, and he says, okay, that means from TVC to Victoria Island, I only need to do 1 million roads so that they can go.
Exactly.
But then TVC, because we've all left before the census, then you now come back at 10 million. And then you begin to tell me, Lagos is not, is crowded, there is too much traffic. Who do we blame? We're undoing ourselves. And then when you go back to your state of origin, the Mr. Governor there assumes, because out of the 10 million that should be counted here, only 1 have remained to be counted, then your Mr. Governor assumes he has 2 million or 9 million there. And then he begins to try to plan for 9 million. He wants more money from the federal government. He wants, and if he finds out at the end of the day he has to plan for only 200,000 people, what do you think happens? Corruption sets in. So we actually are the ones giving room for that corruption. Because when we stay where we are, when we allow the census to be accurate, the data to be accurate, it becomes reliable. When it is reliable, government policies are based on it. Formulations, legislations are based on that. Because if you're able to tell Mr. Governor that we had 10 children in TVC, then he knows he has to provide 10 schools. If he now says, I want to do 1 million schools, you'll be, no. Yeah. That's another corruption. Or he says, I'm doing only 1. Then you ask him, where would the other 9 children be? Exactly. Because, you see, so demographic data, what we do at the Population Commission, we are the ones that help any government to succeed. We give governance life, because we do evidence-based governance. And if governance is not evidence-based, it cannot succeed. The people cannot have the benefits of good governance.
Okay, so talk to us about the readiness and preparedness of the MPC for the population. Because we know that a lot goes into
That's, I'm so grateful. Thank you for that question. You see, before we carry out the population census, there are a lot of processes. It's a series of processes that we go through. But the most important that touches on the people is what we call the enumeration area demarcation. The enumeration area demarcation is the architectural foundation of the census. Like I say it is a pregnancy that gives birth to the census. When a woman's pregnancy is healthy, you're likely to have an healthy child. If it's the other way around, it is the other way around too. So during enumeration area demarcation, which most of us are not aware of, that is the foundation of the census that we are laying. That's not the only advantage it has though, but that's the major advantage that is relative to the census. Now, what we do is we move from house to house. What we are doing at that time is we're only asking one question, not like census that we ask plethora of questions. And that question is, how many households do you have here? What do we mean by households? We only ask households when it's a residential building, but we number every building, whether commercial, TVC is a commercial area, whether it is your generator house, as long as it is roofed, whether your house is just at foundation. Once it's foundation level, we number. It's your chicken house, we number. Your dog house, everything must be numbered. Because in Nigeria, we carry out both population and housing census. So every standalone structure must be numbered in your area. And when we number all this, when we get to a residential building, we ask you, in this building, how many households do you have? What's the definition of household? It's not the African definition. It's not the general definition. Oh, household, one family, we are one here. This is TVC family, we are one. No, it's not so. It has to do with how you eat. It's a catering arrangement. How many of you eat from the same pot? For example, from my experience, we found that a couple, very much in love, happy couple, but there are two households. How come? The husband is a vegetarian. The wife is not. So they don't cook from the same pot. So they become two households. You understand now?
Two households in one home.
Exactly. Wow. You have 6 youth couples who have taken up an apartment, but they've decided we just did because we don't have money to pay as one person. We all cook separately. There are 6 households. You have a lot of my brothers that come from the east or somewhere. One person goes to the landlord and says, I'm taking up this premise, room. This face me, I face it. But there are 10 of them in the room and they all cook separately. For example, in Moshi or even Alimosho, where we are now, you get to some homes in the passage, you just see different cooking pots, 1, 2, 3. And then the rooms might just be about 10, but you can have cooking pots as much as 30, because about 6, 7 people live in the same room.
So why is it important? Why is the household?
It is important. Why the household? Why we have chosen the household as the measure now is this: the enumeration area demarcation is data taken at disaggregated level. It is by sampling. We just want to sample now, because what we do when we get a particular threshold of the numbers of households, we round it up. It forms a polygon, and then that is one enumeration area. We move to another one, we round it up. It forms a polygon. It's another enumeration area. Let me also tell us here that in those households, we have what we call the sample buildings. In a sample building, when we ask you how many households, okay, you have a grown-up son, he lives with you. You only give him accommodation. Say, well, boy, you got to feed yourself. So he eats from a different pot from his parents, and then the father is a vegetarian, the mother is a regular person. What do? That's 3 households in one. Okay, we record 3 households. Then when we say how many are you in each household, the parents probably still have children in secondary school that they feed, maybe 4. So plus the 2 mother and father that are separate, plus the 4 children that eat with the mom. You see now, we count all of them. And then the big boy that is working but eats separately, maybe he has somebody living with him, a friend or something. Then he says, okay, we eat together in my apartment. So we count every one of them. And then we agree, we get to an average. And then when we get a particular threshold, we round it up and say this is a polygon. So each polygon is an enumeration area. This is the reason. During census, the enumeration area, like in Alimosho, we're about the 4th week. We can go as much as 5, 6 weeks, depending on when we finish. But during census, we only have 5, maximum 7 days. That's why the government says, everybody stay at home, you must be counted. And we ask plethora of questions. We can spend 10 minutes with each person. So having divided into smaller units, it's easy for us during census to get a pair of enumerators who go to each small unit that we call enumeration area. It has been enumerated at that time. Then you cover each. Do you understand now? Let us assume that in Lagos we got 1 million enumeration areas. Then that means we're going to have a pair of million enumerators that will go to each enumeration area and count and say, okay, I'm counting this number, I'm counting this number, I'm counting this area. That is for simplicity. That's why it's the foundation. You know that during enumeration area demarcation, if you don't tell us how many houses you are, if you are afraid because maybe you are seeing, people don't trust government in Nigeria. It's a lie, it's for tax purposes. Now they will know. Another thing they can tell you is, they are coming to demolish if they know 100 of us live here. Do you understand? That is the problem of people who live in very local areas. The problem of people who live in elitist areas is, well, why should I tell you how many we are? They are too, you know what I mean? They just want to say, okay, they don't even want to talk to you. So we have that challenge there. But for those other areas, it's, it could be for tax or demolition. So they are hiding it from us. Some, like in Alimosho where we are, we got to a flat of 2 bedrooms. There are 3 families living in 2 bedrooms. You see, one takes one room, and the sitting room. But because they want to show off to the world that we also live in a flat. When you get there, say, just one person here. You see now. So we have all these challenges. But if you tell us the truth, if we're able to tell Mr. Governor, in Alimosho or in TVC, never mind, in one studio alone, there are usually about 1 million in a student. He knows TVC has to expand and it will give more infrastructure, because the enumeration area demarcation is what we use in building the national frame. Of course, what's a national frame? It's where the government looks at and says, okay, road must go here, water will go here, electricity will go here. Even the Uber we use is because it's when you have a national frame that the Uber can navigate, because the map now says, oh, there's a road here. This is so you see, you need the enumeration area demarcation that we're doing, which is the foundation of the census, so much that if we don't get it right, governance will not be right.
Okay, let's talk about the issue of the staff that will man all of these, because you're talking about every single household in every nook and cranny of Lagos and town, and in fact in Nigeria we're just using we're just using Lagos as our.
Yes, that is it.
So how do you, because we have more than 10, 20 million people from, you know, the statistics we yeah. So how do you find the staff that will go around every household?
What we do is most of them are our own staff, the population commission staff. Like in Lagos State, have about 400 staff.
Okay.
But what we do, we also engage locals because we want people that understand the area.
That's like on ad hoc basis.
Yes, as demarcators. That's why I said sometimes we spend 6 weeks in a local government and we do it one local government at a time. So in the past, we've had 2 local governments merged, you know. But right now, we're just in Alimosho because, and I tell you, my brother, Alimosho is something else.
No, Alimosho is one of the largest populations.
It's not one of them. It is the largest population in Nigeria.
Hmm.
It is actually bigger than some African countries. Even some countries in the world, that is Alimosho for you. It is dense. It is thick. It is massive. So we're in Alimosho now, and we're moving around. And you know, I'm also a warrior. I'm from Igodo. My people are very local. We are local people.
Aren't we all local here?
We are local people. No, when you come to Etiosa, these are highly educated people. They got finesse of education. But we are local people. So it's a different challenge. We were discussing at a meeting, and one of the demarcators said, somewhere in Ejigbo, he got there. In the night, he discovered that people just come on the streets, the malams walking around them, and lay their mats, and they sleep
on the streets,
and they are in hundreds. So what do you say about that? You know, and another demarcator did say that she found out that in some abandoned vehicles, that's the home of some people. We must count them. We must ask them the households, because you see, your household does not have to be you have your own pot. If you eat from mama put all the time, that's
your household.
Exactly. That is it. That's
okay. So when the population census is the process, not area demarcation now, the process or exercise itself, how would you find people who will, because if you're giving it a time space of about a week, that everybody should be counted within that time, how do you handle that?
What we do during the census is we engage more hands.
Okay.
It's an opportunity to give our youth jobs. Okay. That's why the census is like a double-edged sword. It's purely economical. During census, we're going to have over 1 million youths engaged as enumerators. They go in pairs to ask various questions. And you know, now, we also leveraged on technology.
Right.
It's not like in 2006 when everything was handwritten.
Exactly.
You know, and maybe that's why Lagos had its use. Lagos went to court and all that, and you know, this time we use we have a personal digital assistant that is like your iPad. In that iPad, we've taken the satellite imagery of each local government. Every area is in there, and then the GIS. Okay. So you're able to navigate. If you're on if I'm on TVC Street, I cannot lie that I'm at the toll gate any longer. I would see the toll gate far, and I'll know this is TVC. This is where I'm inside.
I see.
So yes.
So there's a dashboard monitoring whatever.
It's a satellite imagery that we have put in all those PDAs, and there is a GIS that leads you from street to street. So you keep moving. It's not like then that you can be on this street and feel, oh, let's jump to that street. You can't do that. Okay. You'll be able to move according to, even if you have to jump, it will be empty to show that you have not really covered that area. The map has really, technology has really been used this time.
All right. On the day of, or on the period of population census, of course, there are people who are involved in essential services on daily basis and may not be home. How do you get them counted in this?
What we do with essential services, even hotels, you know, people, sometimes they are hooked up in the hotels or something, we still count. Because you see, with census, you must, if you don't count one person, then you have not counted everybody. That's our rule. So with essential services, they will probably, we have time, we have special arrangements. Like, for example, people living under the bridges are counted. Everywhere. If a child is born the morning of census and we get to your house that morning, say, oh, we just had a baby, we must count the baby. We must take the information about the baby. So we have various arrangements that suit essential services and all these other areas.
Talk to us about areas where it is terrains that are very challenging to access. where you have to either go by boat or you can't drive to those places because they are so interior and then there are no roads. How do you take care of places like that?
And I tell you, Lagos has a lot of that. You think Lagos, you have seen, people think when they come into Balogun, they see people.
Yeah, no, in fact, some people just feel, it's Ikeja now, Ikeja the island, you know, and then Ikorodu, you know, it's a lot, it's a lot.
We've been to places with boats. Let me tell you, in 2016, when we had the first enumeration area demarcation, after that we had a second one in Shomolu Bariga. Do you know that the whole of Ilaje area, you can't access unless you have a boat?
Wow.
And the boats they use is a local boat. And we didn't have life jackets. We had to go on it. But thank God I'd always mentioned this. The then commissioner for the environment saw us and sent for me and said, don't kill yourself. You don't have life jackets. And people are in this boat. And Lagos State government gave us 30 life jackets. We'd always be grateful. Lagos State government has been very, very supportive, which is helping us a lot. You see, because we must go everywhere. Like when we were in Ekpe, we had speedboats that could take us everywhere. In the mainland, in Amuwo, Dofin, all these areas, we must go with the boats. In fact, there are areas in Amuwo, Dofin that you would have to, the hotels, they don't have hotels in that locality. So we just look at these areas and look for an hotel close by. So a boat takes the enumerators every morning, the functionaries, to their place, and the boat brings them back. So if you have phobia for large waters, and then, like you said, all those hard to reach areas, like when you get to Ajegunle proper, some areas, we either use Marua or the Okada, or sometimes we have to go with our feet. In fact, recently, one of the functionaries actually fell into a gutter because he said the area was just with planks on the road, and maybe he didn't know which one. And as he dipped in, thank God somebody was able to.
Was that? So in this case, there's this question for you about traveling at that time. Are you advising that people shouldn't travel?
During census, when you travel, that's census migration. It should be it's a criminal offense.
Wow.
That's my belief. Because you see, when you travel during census, for example, you've been eating in Lagos, you have a job in Lagos, your family is here, everything you're doing is Lagos here. Some of them even build houses here. Then when it's census, they say I'm from Anambra,
my origin.
My origin, I must go back to go maybe and count to house. There's nothing like that. Because when they count you at your home, this is your home, where God has blessed you. Then you come back here and put more load on the government. And then you tell me nothing is working. How can something work when you don't allow the government to have the accurate data?
So what we are looking to is like almost like a lockdown. Almost.
It's always like that. In 2006, that's what it was. The government will give public holiday for the 5 days of census because we want everybody to be in their station. But you know, Nigerians, once they know it's 5 days, start moving out. There should be legislation that will criminalize census migration.
All right. The only one question I'm going to ask you before we leave now, which you will answer in less than 1 minute, is the issue of awareness creation. Because you talked about as the issue of a challenge earlier on. At what point are we going to hear all the jingles and all the awareness campaign?
Currently, we have jingles on radio, on traffic radio and some other radio stations. We want to have in a TVC, but your price.
But you're here now. You're here now. We're talking.
That's why we're grateful to you for having us today. So that I must show people, those living there who haven't heard us anywhere, but are lovers of TVC, because we know TVC has a very wide reach. They will now know, oh, this is happening, and then they will be able to call us and say, you're not here, or we saw you yesterday. We didn't understand what you said. Please come back today, because some just look at us as, what is this census people? What are they saying? They don't. But when they listen now and they know that it's for their own good, it's for the future of your child, or your children, it's for the greater good of the state, it's for better development.
In that case, are they strategies to partner different agencies that can help you propagate some of this information?
We do have. Right. It's just that if you looked at it in 2006 census, you didn't even get about enumeration area demarcation. But we realized that since this is a foundation, we must let people appreciate this and understand the foundation. So when we come to census proper, we'll be able to make it more accurate. We are poised to giving Nigerians a better, accurate, and dependable census.
All right.
Because Nigeria must develop better than we are now.
All right. I promise that we'll bring you back again.
Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much. God bless TVC. I'm sure my people are shouting Boza.
Oh, yeah.
3 Bozas for TVC.
Boza. All right, no problem. The point there is we are all partners in this, and we'll do our part as well. So we'll find time, at intervals to have this, enlightenment. Thank you so much. Thank you, Barrister Abimbola Salu-Hundeyin. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Great.